At a young age, I was diagnosed with dyslexia, which meant that I needed to pick up a skill that changed the way I learned, thought, and spoke. So since I was 7, I unintentionally dedicated my life to practicing thoughtful, intentional communication. Learning how to thoughtfully and communicate changed the way I thought about myself and the world in which I created my life. This is imperative for me to emphasize this truth to you because it is crucial to communicate with intent. While communication isn't necessarily a hard concept, it's really complex because there's so many facets and mechanisms with communication that need to be correct and need to correlate with each other, whether it's nonverbal, verbal, written, and visual, or else you miscommunicate yourself and you miscommunicate your values in the world in which is around you. Intercultural communication and context, Judith Martin and Glenn Turner, who are communication scholars, kind of understand communication as a symbolic process whereby reality is produced, maintained, repaired, and transformed. We can get the opportunity to create our own reality. This also in turn helps us create our own self. So it's really important and crucial for us to think really intentionally about these things and about this reality, or else we misinterpret who we are and we misinterpret the things around us. And then we can falsely suggest our values about ourselves, which is why it's so important to be self-aware about these things, because research suggests that people seem deceitful and difficult to understand when their verbal behavior is inconsistent with their nonverbal behavior. And that's from Weisbush on being consistent, the role of verbal and nonverbal consistency in first impressions. We can create a false identity that's inconsistent with our values if we don't think intentionally about what we're communicating to others. We're creating this reality in our own heads, and how we transfer it to other people is how we're perceived. And that in turn reflects the reality that we live in and reflects the society in which we're brought up in. And communication in itself dictates the rules of society and helps us understand society's values. All communities, at all places, at all times, manifest their own view of reality in what they do. The entire culture reflects the contemporary model of reality. And that's again from intercultural scholars, Judith Martin and Glenn Turner from Intercultural Communication and Context. Whether you're from an individualistic culture, which is a more American culture, where we're kind of used to being like, listen to what I have to say right now because it's important to me and I know it's important to you that you hear what I have to say. That would be terrifying for a collectivistic culture, which values harmony and unity for their community and would be seen as passive-aggressive for an individualistic culture because they don't really express what they're feeling exactly as we do. This is why communication is a language in itself that needs to be kind of learned and understood and practiced. That's why it needs to be so intentional, because if miscommunicated and not understood or thought about, it can create a really negative reality. And that's why communication is so powerful. Communication is power. Domination in modern society is enacted through widely dispersed powers of many agents mediating the decisions of others. That's from the 5 Faces of Oppression by Iris Marin Young. Communication is dangerous because if not thoughtfully done, it can enforce negative values in society that just engender hate and oppression when it has the power to enact such powerful and thoughtful change. This play in itself was literally about a time where people thought and learned how to think differently from what was told to them, and they took action on their thoughts and they communicated their reality and took action to change it. While that's a big example of how it can change reality in whole in society, little things and questions about ourselves and our own reality can change who we are as people and can change the world that we personally live in, whether that's asking, why am I taking this class? Why am I at this job? Do I even like what I'm saying? Why did that person make me uncomfortable? Do I even like this outfit? Do I even like myself? These little questions change our reality and change who we are. And it's important to talk to ourselves in this way because you create an internal dialogue with yourself. And in turn, you're learning how to talk and you're learning how to think and learning how to think to yourself, because in the long run, you're going to be your own best friend. So you have to live with the values that you create in your head, and you have to live with how you act. And the little actions that we have are really powerful. Like literally creating a reality. I know it's backwards on the screen, but I just created a reality right here. And that's a silly example, but even journaling, practicing the art of communication non-verbally in written form and writing it down to look at your words and look at your thoughts in physical form is really fascinating and really powerful. That's why it's so important to be intentional about our thoughts, because we're giving our reality and expressing it to other people to change their reality. And as someone who struggled to learn how to communicate and was diagnosed as actually really bad at it from a young age, I'm so passionate about telling this to you because communication is powerful and you really need to be intentional about communication and better practice it and understand it so you can understand yourself and the world around you.